$110,000 salary with $400 in savings versus a $58,000 salary with $47,000 saved. Same city, same job title. And if you think the person earning more is doing better, you need to watch this until the very end, because what went wrong here is probably happening to you right now. Let me introduce you to two people. The first is Marcus. Marcus earns $110,000 a year. He drives a leased BMW. He wears watches that cost more than some people's rent. His Instagram looks like a lifestyle magazine. He eats out 4, sometimes 5 nights a week. His apartment has that curated, expensive look, the kind where everything matches because a store told him it should. Marcus is broke, not the dramatic, made-for-television kind of broke. The quiet kind, the kind where you decline a friend's wedding because you can't afford the flight, but you say you're busy. The kind where your credit card balance grows by a little bit every single month and you just stop looking. Marcus has $400 in savings. He is one surprise car repair away from a financial spiral. Now meet Jake. Jake earns $58,000 a year. He drives a 10-year-old Honda Civic that he bought in cash. He wears the same rotation of simple, well-fitting clothes. His apartment is clean, modest, and quiet. There is nothing in it that doesn't get used at least once a week. Jake has $47,000 in savings. He invests 22% of every paycheck. He sleeps 8 hours a night because nothing in his financial life keeps him awake. He turned down a higher-paying job last year because he didn't like the company culture and he could afford to say no. Read those two descriptions again in your mind. Marcus earns nearly double what Jake earns. Jake has more than 100 times the financial security. This is not an exaggeration. This is not a hypothetical. Variations of Marcus and Jake exist in every office, every neighborhood, every social circle in the world. And the difference between them is never income. It is always the relationship between what they earn and what they believe they need. Today I'm going to walk you through the minimalist money rules that explain why some people always have money and others never do, regardless of what lands in their account every 2 weeks. These rules are not about eating rice and beans. They are not about punishing yourself. They are about seeing clearly in a world designed to keep you blind. Let me start with the rule that changes everything once you understand it. Every dollar you spend has a future self attached to it. Most people think about money in the present tense. They see $40 and they think about what $40 can buy right now. A meal, a shirt, a subscription for a month. But $40 is not just $40, it is also what $40 becomes if you don't spend it. $40 invested today, earning a historically average market return, becomes roughly $300 in 30 years. That is not fantasy, that is math. So when you spend $40 on something forgettable, you are not just spending $40, you are spending $300 future dollars on something you will not remember by next Tuesday. Now, this does not mean you should never spend money. It means you should only spend money on things worth their future cost. A $40 dinner with someone you love where the conversation stays with you for years. That might be worth $300 future dollars. A $40 impulse purchase from an ad you saw while scrolling at midnight. That is setting $300 on fire and not even enjoying the warmth. Jake understood this at 24. He told me once that he doesn't see price tags, he sees what that money becomes. A $200 jacket is not $200, it is $1,500 in 25 years. So the jacket better be extraordinary, it better last, it better make his life genuinely better, in a way that justifies burning $1,500 future dollars. Most of his clothes cost less than $50 each. But his winter coat cost $400. He wears it every single day for 5 months a year. He has owned it for 6 years. The cost per wear is pennies. he will own it for another 6. That $400 was a bargain by any honest calculation. This is how minimalists think, not cheap, precise. Now here is the second rule: automate the right behavior before you have a chance to choose the wrong one. Here is something nobody wants to admit: you are not disciplined. I am not disciplined. Nobody is consistently disciplined when it comes to money. Discipline is a finite resource. It runs out by Wednesday. It vanishes after a bad day at work. It disappears entirely when you are tired, lonely, or bored. The people who win with money do not win because they have superior willpower. They win because they built systems that do not require willpower at all. Jake's paycheck hits his account on the 1st of every month. Before he wakes up that morning, before he has a chance to even think about that money, 22% has already moved to his investment account. Another 10% has moved to a high-yield savings account he uses as an emergency fund. His rent is paid automatically. His utilities are paid automatically. By the time Jake looks at his bank account, the only money visible is the money he is allowed to spend, not the money he should save. That is already gone. Not the money for bills, that is already allocated, just the money for living. He does not decide to invest every month. The system decides for him. He does not resist the temptation to skip savings. The temptation never arrives because the money is never there to tempt him. Compare this to Marcus. Marcus sees his full paycheck in his account. He tells himself he will transfer money to savings later. Later becomes tomorrow. Tomorrow becomes next week. Next week becomes after rent is due. After rent becomes after the credit card bill. After the credit card bill becomes never. Every month, the same story. Not because Marcus is lazy or stupid, because Marcus relies on decisions instead of systems. Decisions fail, systems don't. If you want to change your financial life with one action today, set up automatic transfers, make saving the default, make investing invisible, take your future self out of the equation because your future self is weak, distractible, and has terrible judgment at 10 p.m. on a Friday. Rule 3. Calculate the hidden cost of everything you own. You bought a thing. You paid the price on the tag. You think the transaction is over. It is not. The transaction is never over. Everything you own charges you rent for the privilege of keeping it. That guitar you bought during your brief musical phase, it takes up space in your apartment, space that costs you money. In most cities, you are paying $20 to $50 per square foot per year. That guitar and its case occupy about 6 square feet. You are paying up to $300 a year in implicit rent to store an instrument you haven't touched in 14 months. But it gets worse. That guitar also costs you mental energy. Every time you see it, some part of your brain processes it. Guilt for not playing it. A vague intention to start again someday. A low-level awareness that you own something you don't use. Researchers call this the cognitive cost of clutter. It is real. It is measurable. It increases your baseline stress in ways you cannot consciously detect. And it gets worse still. That guitar cost you $200 when you bought it. $200 invested 5 years ago would be worth roughly $320 today. You didn't just pay $200 for a guitar. You paid $320 plus $300 a year in storage, plus the ongoing mental tax of owning something useless. The guitar is not just sitting there doing nothing. It is actively draining your wealth in 3 separate ways simultaneously. Minimalists calculate these hidden costs obsessively, not because they are cheap, because they understand that the price tag is a lie. The price tag shows you the down payment on an ongoing expense that never ends until you remove the item from your life. Jake owns exactly what he uses. When I visited his apartment, I was struck by the space, not because it was large. It was a modest one-bedroom, but every surface was clear, every drawer closed easily, every closet had room to spare. The space felt calm, and I realized that calm is what you get when you stop paying hidden rent on things that give you nothing in return. Kevit, Rule 4. Never let your lifestyle meet your income. This is the rule that separates people who build wealth from people who merely earn well, and it is the rule that almost everyone breaks without realizing it. When your income increases, something dangerous happens. Your brain immediately begins scanning for ways to upgrade your life to match. You get a $10,000 raise, and within 3 months, you have a nicer apartment, a better car, or a more expensive routine. The raise disappears. Your savings rate stays the same. Your financial position does not improve at all, despite earning more money. This is lifestyle inflation. It is the single most powerful wealth-destroying force in personal finance, more damaging than bad investments, more damaging than high-interest debt, more damaging than any single financial mistake you could make. Because it is invisible, automatic, and culturally encouraged, everyone around you is doing it. Your colleagues upgrade when they get promoted, your friends upgrade when they get raises. Social media shows you what your income level is supposed to look like. The pressure to match your lifestyle to your income is relentless and comes from every direction. Jake got a $12,000 raise 2 years ago. His lifestyle did not change by a single dollar. Same apartment, same car, same grocery budget, same entertainment spending. The entire $12,000 went directly to investments. In 5 years at average market returns, that $12,000 will be worth roughly $20,000. In 20 years, and it will be worth over $50,000. Jake essentially got paid $50,000 for the discipline of changing nothing. Marcus got a $15,000 raise the same year. He moved to a nicer apartment, adding $600 a month in rent. He upgraded his car lease. He started eating at more expensive restaurants. Within 4 months, the entire raise was absorbed. He was earning more and saving the exact same amount, which was nothing. The minimalist rule is simple. When your income increases and your lifestyle stays the same, the gap between what you earn and what you spend is the only number that determines whether you will be wealthy or broke. Grow the gap. Protect the gap. The gap is everything. We are halfway through these rules. And if you are still here, you are already thinking differently than 90% of people about money. Stay till the end. The last rule is the one that makes all the others actually stick. Rule 5. Apply the 72-hour test to every want. You see something you want. Your brain lights up. Dopamine floods your system. Your hand reaches for your wallet or your phone. In that moment, you are not making a rational decision. You are responding to a chemical reaction designed by evolution to pursue immediate rewards. Minimalists interrupt this reaction with time, specifically 72 hours. The rule is simple. When you want to buy something that is not a genuine necessity, write it down, put the date next to it. Wait 72 hours. If you still want it after 3 full days, consider buying it. If the desire has faded, congratulate yourself. You just saved money you would have regretted spending. The results of this rule are staggering. Studies on consumer behavior show that the majority of purchase desires fade significantly within 48 hours. By 72 hours, most impulse wants have evaporated entirely. The thing you absolutely needed on Tuesday feels irrelevant by Friday. Jake keeps a list on his phone. He calls it his waiting list. Everything he wants goes on it with a date. He reviews it every Sunday. He told me that roughly 80% of items never get purchased. They sit on the list, the desire fades, and he eventually deletes them. The 20% he does buy are things he genuinely wanted, not things a momentary impulse convinced him he needed. Think about what that means. 80% of what Jake would have bought, 80% of what his brain told him he needed, turned out to be noise. Chemical reactions masquerading as genuine desire. If that ratio holds for you, and it probably does, you are currently spending roughly 4 to 5 times more than your actual wants require. The rest is impulse, marketing, and brain chemistry working against your interests. Rule 6. Measure your wealth by your freedom, not your stuff. Here is a question that will tell you more about your financial health than any bank statement. If you lost your job tomorrow, how many months could you survive without changing your lifestyle? If the answer is less than 3 months, you are financially fragile regardless of how much you earn. If the answer is 6 to 12 months, you are financially stable. If the answer is more than 12 months, you are financially free in the most practical sense of the word. Jake can survive 22 months without income, not by eating rice and beans, not by moving to a cheaper city. 22 months living exactly as he lives now. That number is his real wealth, not his car, not his wardrobe, not anything visible to the outside world. That 22 months means Jake can walk away from any job. It means he can take risks that terrified people cannot take. It means he can weather any economic storm, any health emergency, any unexpected life event without panic. He is not rich by conventional standards. He is free by every standard that actually matters. Marcus can survive about 12 days. 12 days. Despite earning nearly twice Jake's salary, despite looking wealthier to anyone who sees them side by side, Marcus is one unexpected event away from financial catastrophe. He has an expensive life that he cannot afford to lose, and almost no ability to survive its disruption. Minimalists measure wealth in months of freedom, not in objects. Every purchase decision is filtered through this lens. Does this purchase add to my months of freedom or subtract from them? A $20 book that improves your skills might add to your earning potential and therefore your freedom. A $20,000 watch subtracts from your freedom and adds nothing but decoration. When you start measuring wealth this way, spending patterns change dramatically. You stop wanting to look wealthy, you start wanting to be wealthy, and the difference between those two things is the difference between Marcus and Jake. Rule 7. Own multi-purpose items, not single-purpose ones. Look around your home and count the items that do only one thing. The avocado slicer, the electric can opener, the bread maker, the garlic press, the egg separator, single-purpose items that clutter drawers and cabinets, and serve functions that a good knife, a regular can opener, or your own 2 hands could accomplish. Single-purpose items are the enemy of minimalist finances. They cost money to buy, space to store, and attention to maintain, all while solving problems that rarely need solving or that could be solved by something you already own. Jake's kitchen has 1 good chef's knife, 1 cutting board, 1 cast iron skillet, 1 medium saucepan, 1 baking sheet, and a handful of basic utensils. He cooks every day. He makes food that ranges from simple to genuinely impressive. He does this with roughly 15 items total in his kitchen. The average American kitchen contains over 300 items. Most of those items are used less than once a month. Many are never used at all. They represent hundreds or thousands of dollars spent on solving problems that a smaller set of versatile tools solves better. The multi-purpose principle extends beyond the kitchen. A good pair of athletic shoes that works for running, hiking, and the gym replaces 3 separate pairs. A laptop that handles work, entertainment, and communication replaces a desktop, a tablet, and potentially other devices. A well-designed living space that serves as both relaxation area and workspace replaces the need for a larger, more expensive home. Every time, you can replace 3 single-purpose items with 1 multi-purpose item. You save on purchase costs, storage costs, maintenance, and mental overhead. Multiply this principle across every category in your life, and the savings are substantial. Rule 8. Make your default answer no. Most people's default answer to spending opportunities is yes. Yes to the subscription, yes to the upgrade, yes to the dinner out, yes to the impulse purchase. And then they try to selectively say no to specific thing when they realize they are overspending. This approach fails because it requires constant vigilance. You have to evaluate every single opportunity and actively resist each one that isn't worth it. Decision fatigue guarantees you will eventually say yes to something you shouldn't. Minimalists invert this. Their default answer is no, no to everything, and then they selectively say yes to the things that genuinely improve their lives. This inversion is powerful because it changes the burden of proof. Instead of each purchase being innocent until proven wasteful, each purchase is wasteful until proven valuable. The item has to justify its existence in your life before you let it in, not after. Jake told me something that stuck with me. He said most people spend their energy trying to figure out what to cut from their budget. He spends his energy figuring out what deserves to be added. The distinction sounds subtle, it is not. It is the difference between defense and offense, between reacting to overspending and preventing it entirely. When your default is no, you do not need budgeting apps. You do not need spending trackers. You do not need elaborate financial systems. You need one simple question. Does this earn a yes? If it does not clearly and obviously earn a yes, it remains a no. Simple, sustainable, effective. Rule 9. Detach your identity from your purchases. This is the deepest rule, the one that makes all the others possible. Most spending is not about the object. It is about what the object says about you. You don't buy the designer jacket for warmth. You buy it so people perceive you as successful. You don't buy the luxury car for transportation. You buy it so people perceive you as important. You don't buy the latest gadget for functionality. You buy it so people perceive you as current and relevant. When your identity is attached to what you own, you can never own enough. There is always someone with something better. There is always a newer version. There is always another level. The pursuit is endless by design because the thing you are actually chasing, the feeling of being enough, cannot be purchased. Jake drives a 10-year-old car. He doesn't drive it despite his financial knowledge. He drives it because of it. He told me that the moment he stopped connecting his self-worth to his possessions, spending became almost effortless to control. The desire to impress strangers with objects evaporated. What remained was a clear view of what he actually needed versus what his ego demanded. This is the hardest shift. It requires confronting why you really buy what you buy. It requires admitting that many purchases are performances, not necessities. It requires accepting that the audience you are performing for is mostly not watching, definitely does not care. But once you make this shift, financial discipline stops feeling like sacrifice. It feels like freedom from a game you never actually wanted to play. And finally, Rule 10. Build the life first and then spend on it. Most people spend first and then try to build a life around what they have accumulated. They buy the big house and then work overtime to afford it. They buy the expensive car and then stress about payments. They commit to the lifestyle and then scramble to fund it. Minimalists reverse this sequence entirely. They build the life they want first. They figure out what matters, what brings genuine satisfaction, what aligns with their values, and only then do they spend precisely and intentionally on the things that support that life. Jake spent 6 months thinking about what he actually wanted his daily life to look like before he made any major financial decisions. He realized he wanted time more than things. He wanted flexibility more than status. He wanted peace more than excitement. Once he knew that, his spending became obvious. Small apartment because he didn't need space for things he didn't want. Used car because transportation was a utility, not a statement. Modest wardrobe because clothes were functional, not performative. The money he saved by aligning his spending with his actual values, not society's expectations, goes directly into the accounts that buy him time and flexibility. Every month, his freedom grows. Every month, his options expand. Every month, the gap between his income and his needs widens, and that gap is where wealth lives. Here is what I need you to understand. The financial industry sells complexity. It sells products, strategies, systems, and sophistication. It makes money when you believe that building wealth requires expertise you don't have. The truth is brutally simple. Spend less than you earn. Invest the difference. Own only what adds genuine value to your life. Do this consistently for 10 years, and you will be wealthier than most people who earn twice your income. Jake is not a financial genius. He is not exceptionally disciplined. He is not depriving himself of joy. He simply saw through the illusion that more stuff equals more happiness. And he built his life around what is true instead of what is marketed. The apartment with space and calm and 22 months of savings is available to almost anyone watching this. Not because you need to earn more, because you need to want less. Not less joy, not less experience, not less life, less stuff, less noise, less of what was never making you happy in the first place. The math is simple. The psychology is hard. But once you get the psychology right, the math takes care of itself, and you never check your bank account with a knot in your stomach again. That was 10 rules, 0 complexity. Now here is what I want you to do. Pick just one of these rules, just one, and apply it this week. Not all 10, not 5, 1. Because one rule applied consistently will change more in your life than 10 rules you only think about. And if this changed even one thing about how you think about money, subscribe. I put out content like this every week for people who want to build real wealth without pretending to be rich. I will see you in the next one.